Hi, welcome everyone to first lesson in a sequence of 9 lessons on statistics. Today we'll look at different types of data, and by the end of this lesson you should be able to decide if the data you're presented with is either categorical or numerical, and then if it is ordinal or nominal or discrete or continuous. We'll also be looking at different ways of representing this data as well. Today's lesson will help you with section 1 of the assignment. Alright, so first we're going to look at different types of data. But first, what is data? So data is a collection of responses to any particular question that you might be interested in investigating. And it's divided into two major types. First one is called categorical, and the second group is called numerical. Now, if the responses that you are giving to a question involve numbers, then the data is numerical. And if responses to a question are not numbers, then the data is classified as categorical. So for example, if I asked, how many pets do you have? The answers that I might expect could be something like 1 or none or 5 or 2. And because all of these responses are numbers, this type of data would be classified as numerical. On the other hand, if I asked, what is your favorite sport? Then, of course, you might say basketball or footy or any of those things. And because these aren't numbers, this type of data is categorical. Now, categorical data can further be divided into two groups. It can be classified as nominal or ordinal. So nominal data has no sense of any particular order. So for example, if I asked you what suburb you lived in, you might say something like Dromana or Rosebud or Mornington, and there is no way why Dromana should come before Rosebud, for example, or vice versa. Same with eye color. If I asked you what your eye color was, you might say blue or brown or green, and again, there is no reason, there is no way for me to sort of order the responses in any particular way. On the other hand, ordinal data you can in fact assign order to ordinal data. So you might have a survey, and so I don't know, you could ask a question like, what was your customer service experience like? And the options you might get are good, neutral, or bad. Now, there is some kind of order that I can assign that to, from best to worst. And so, because I can put the responses into some form of order, this type of data is called ordinal. So it's still not numbers, and it's still categorical, but I can order it in some particular way. In the same way, numerical data is further subdivided into two groups, discrete and continuous. Discrete data is data that is counted. So for example, if I asked you how many computers you have at home, to answer that, you have to go out and count. So as a result, number of computers per household would be classified as discrete. Discrete data is made up of distinct values, usually whole numbers. So for example, going back to our computer problem, you can't have half a computer. You can have one or you can have two, but not somewhere in between. Continuous data is obtained by measuring. So someone's height or weight are really good examples, because if I asked you what your height was, you of course couldn't go out and count it. Instead, you would need to measure it. So unlike discrete data, continuous data is measured and not counted. Also, unlike discrete data, continuous data can take on any value. So if I was recording weights of different people, someone might weigh 60 kilograms, someone else might weigh 61 kilograms, while someone else might weigh 60.5 kilograms, or any other mass in between. I'd like you now to pause the video and record this diagram in your book. Have a go now at classifying each of the questions below. You might like to pause the video and then we'll go through it together. Alright, so hopefully you've had a bit of a go by yourself, but now we're going to go through the answers together. So first question says, what is your favourite subject at school? The answers I might expect to get are things like English, science, maths. So because none of these answers are numbers, this type of data would be classed as categorical. Furthermore, there is no reason why maths should come before English or vice versa. So therefore, this type of data is called nominal. Second question, how long does it take to complete maths homework? So the answers we get here are certainly numbers. Would you count how long it takes you to complete maths homework though? Of course not. You have to measure or time how long it takes. So therefore, this type of data is classed as continuous. Third question says, how many elephants are at the zoo? So the answers we'd get are certainly numbers, and for someone to obtain these answers, they'd have to go out and count the number of elephants. So therefore, this type of data is classed as discrete. Fourth question, how high can you jump? So answers I'd get are numbers, and to obtain the answer, I would have to go out and do some measuring again. So therefore, this type of data would be classed as continuous. Fifth question says, did you get above, at, or below on your test? So answers I'd get are either above, at, or below level. Now, there is some kind of order I can sort these into. So whilst they're not numbers, there is an order I can assign to them. So from best to worst or whatnot. So therefore, this type of data is classed as ordinal. Sixth question says, what football team do you go for? So the answers we get are not numbers, and so therefore it's categorical, and no team should, for whatever reason, come in front of any other team. So therefore, we can't assign any order to the answers, and so therefore this type of data is classed as nominal. Question 7 says, how many people do you live with? Now, answers are numbers, and to give me an answer, you'd have to count the number of people in your household. So therefore, this is discrete data. Finally, question 8 says, how satisfied were you with your meal? So responses might be something like satisfied, not satisfied, or somewhere in the middle. And because we can put these in order from most to least satisfied, this is ordinal data. Next, we have to look at different displays or charts used to summarize collected data. And what you need to be able to do is recognize which type of display is best suited for the data that you are working with. So for categorical data, we like to use two types of charts, one of which is called a frequency table and the other which is called a bar chart. So with the frequency table, what we have here as an example is a list of favorite sports for different people. And at the end, you've got the frequency. So the frequency tells me how many people chose, for example, AFL as their favorite sport. So from here, I can see that 6 people prefer AFL, 2 people prefer basketball, 7 prefer cricket, and so on. With bar charts, they are just another way of representing the same information, but in a slightly different way. In lesson 2, we're going to look in more detail at how to draw bar charts and how to label them and what's important and what we need to keep in mind when we're constructing one. Finally, we're going to look at different displays and charts that are used to represent numerical data. We're not going to go in a lot of detail today about how we actually construct some of these graphs, but we'll be looking at most of them over the coming lesson. So frequency tables can be used to represent not just categorical data, but also numerical data. And they can be used to represent both discrete and continuous numerical data. And they're useful for both small and large data sets. So regardless of whether we're interviewing a small number of people or a large number of people, we can use frequency tables. As an example for discrete data, we might have a table that looks like this. Here, data was collected on the number of marks students obtained on a test. Each score that students obtained is separate to all the other scores. So 4 is separate to 5, is separate to 6, and so on. Another example is one for continuous data. Here, data is grouped rather than separate. And the reason for that is that for continuous data, values can take on any number. So someone might take 9 minutes to complete a certain task, someone else might take 9 and 48 seconds, and so on. So we need to be able to include every single possible value. And so therefore, data is often grouped. We're not going to go into a lot of detail on how to construct the frequency table. So if you have forgotten, then it might be a good idea to visit the website below to have a bit of a look. Another chart that is very useful in representing numerical data, and specifically discrete numerical data, is called a dot plot. So dot plots are used to represent small data sets, and they're not just useful for discrete numerical data, but also for representing categorical data. And this is what they look like. So as you can see, it's almost kind of like a frequency table, but information is represented using dots. For more information on how to construct a dot plot, please visit the website below. Histograms, stem and leaf plots, as well as box plots are other types of graphs that are also used to specifically represent numerical data, and really only numerical data, so they cannot be used to represent categorical data simply because they require you to use numbers. So we're going to look at each of these in a lot more detail in the coming lessons. At this stage, you just need to be aware that these are some of the graphs that can be used to represent numerical data. However, they cannot be used for categorical. So the table below summarizes what we've discussed this far. You might like to pause the video now and write this down in your notebook. And this brings us to the end of our lesson. So you should have a good understanding of what is meant by categorical and numerical data, as well as what nominal, ordinal, discrete, and continuous data is. And you should also be familiar with some of the graphs that can be used to represent the different data sets. What you need to do now is first make sure you have completed all of the notes from the previous slide. This needs to be copied into your bound reference book. You then need to have a look at lesson 1, types of data, consolidation task, which you will find in your new class feed for this lesson, and make sure you correct your answers. Once you have completed that, you will need to have a go at question 1 of your GAT, which you'll also find on Compass. Thank you very much and look forward to seeing you all soon.